in his pocket and walked from Carillon to Lachute, got a job as a baker, and in his spare time he took walks all around the territory of what we know as Argenteuil, looking for a spot to open a moulin, a grist mill, in Moulin de Fouet. Oui. Yeah, oui. And he found at the very bottom end of Maple Avenue here, the ideal spot on the West River. And he opened a grist mill and built a home. And he also built a sawmill. And in 1934, his daughter Jane, he had two daughters, one married and went back to England. The other one married Alex McGibbon, who was part of the McGibbon family, who are famous throughout the county for their logging and lumber business. This young man married the Jane Brown and built the home that Marielle and Francois Jobin live in at the bottom end. So this is the oldest house still standing in Brownsburg. And 4 years ago, I was pretty bored, and it was longer than that, it's 5 years ago, and I took a course sponsored by McGill University, and it was senior learning. It was how to do research. And what they did was they gave us each a topic, and I picked the topic of the plant here in Brownsburg. And in my research, we had to write a thesis. I started reading about the history of the area, and Brownsburg is connected to all of what we know as Brownsburg-Chatham, including the Lachute area. And I got very interested, and I was telling people, and the next thing I knew, I had pictures coming to my door and people calling and things being sent to me on the email. Consequently, 4 years later, I have over 10,000 photos and over 800 documents and numerous diaries of young women in the 1800s, which gives you a real feeling of what life was like and how hard they worked, but what a wonderful community they had. And there were 14 communities within which is what is now our Brownsburg-Chatham, which most of them don't exist today, like Chatborough and Stonefield. Jerusalem is now called just the quarry. There are many areas that have died. But this is just a little overview of what Brownsburg was. And
Can we say the Brownsburg Village? That would be like...
Brownsburg Village. Brownsburg became a village in 1856. And the name was chosen. There were three dominant families, the Browns, the McGibbons, and the McEwitts. And it resulted, this was called only the Four Corners before it had a name. They wanted to have a post office, and in order to have a post office, you had to have a name. But there was a bar. There was always a bar. And there was plenty of fistfights going on about what the name was going to be. Anyways, the Browns won out because the Browns married into the McGibbons. So the McEwitts lost on that count. And this mill, the Moulin de Lin, was built in 1856, I believe, by a man named Thomas Foreman. And he eventually sold to the Morrison family. And it was operated until the late 1930s. Where are you, Therese? Therese and her husband, Guy, down here, live in the Morrison home. And they still have pieces of the moulin down below on the river. That's on what they call the East River.
That's how the Michel Gauthier, right?
Yes, on this side of the river, right. That is what this place is. This was attached to the house in behind the brick home that you see near the highway. This was Brownsburg from the 20s to 1944 when this all burnt down. It was called the Periso block. And the Periso family did indeed rebuild only out of cement and brick after. This was Mr. Schuh's pharmacy, but this was the Hardy building. It was a general store way back in the late 1800s. And next door, remember there was a home there. It was called the Hamilton home. The Hamilton family lived in there. This Ira McFall and his brother built the store here on the corner. That was beautiful. That was still there when I was a young girl. It was so beautiful. Big, wide, broad board floors and the cabinets The showcases were all thick, heavy oak wood with rounded glass, and it was a beautiful store. That was torn down and a pharmacy was built there, but then the pharmacy burned down. There's been a lot of fires in Brownsburg. This is the original home of Howard Gat Howard, Arthur Gat Howard. He was the man who started the ammunition factory in Brownsburg. There's a monument to his memory just there in the park that we unveiled last year. He divorced his wife. He was an American from Connecticut who came up here to, actually he came by request of the Canadian government. He worked for Colt Manufacturing Company and they made the Gatling gun. And the Canadian government bought 3 Gatling guns from that company, and they sent him up with not the guns that eventually were ours. They were on loan, the ones he brought. He went out to Winnipeg and fought the battle of the rebellion in Winnipeg with those, and went back to Ottawa, and they didn't want him to leave, so they sent him to Brownsburg because there were no ammunition factories in Canada. There was a black powder factory there that had been closed. It opened in 1875 by a guy named Daniel Smith and only operated for a couple of years, and then he sold out to the Hamilton Powder Company and moved on to Kingston because they were going to build the railway lines, and he saw more money in Kingston than he did in black powder in Brownsburg. That's Gat Howard's home, which eventually he left when his wife died in 1899. He joined the Canadian militia and went to South Africa to fight the Boer War, and he was killed there in 1901. 1901. He's buried in South Africa. And this is the Catholic Church as it existed. It was a community center for the French Catholic population. It served as a school, as a Chevalier Colomb, as a meeting place, as a church. It was the cultural center of... I know because my grandparents were married in this church. Thank you.
Now what Kathleen doesn't know is that she's going to be on YouTube soon. Because we do have that's perfect. So we have an ally here who's filming it, so we're going to be able to post that and have other people enjoy what you just said. So I invite you to go meet Monsieur Gauthier. Mais là, c'est ça, je continue en anglais. Je vais essayer de le faire en bilingue. I do... I remind you that I can take money today, tomorrow as well, if you want to contribute to this piece of art. Je vous invite à aller voir Monsieur Gauthier. Il a apporté des photos pour voir l'évolution de son travail. On a des croquis aussi pour voir à partir de quoi il est parti. Je pense que ça vaut la peine d'aller voir ça. Naturellement, on a d'autres activités. On est là jusqu'à 4 heures. Donc, vous pouvez parler avec M. Gauthier jusqu'à 4 heures. Mais il y a aussi des activités de bricolage. Le but aussi était de vous inspirer du travail de M. Gauthier pour arriver à créer une œuvre à partir de bois et de métaux. Il n'y a pas de concours de performance. On aimerait ça que les gens aient du plaisir et qu'ils s'essaient. Alors, à la table ici avec Marielle, on a beaucoup de matériaux. Marielle, il ne va pas avec le dos de la cuillère. So, if you want to create a piece of your own, please go ahead, jump, and have some pleasure. We have materials and we have activities for the kids. And at 2 o'clock, there's going to be a small story improvised with the help of the tam-tam player. On va avoir un petit conte improvisé pour les enfants à 2 heures, qui dure pas longtemps, une quinzaine de minutes. Et jusqu'à 4 heures, on a des tam-tams. Je vous remercie beaucoup d'être venu aujourd'hui. Je voulais que le travail de M. Gauthier soit reconnu et c'est pour ça que vous êtes là. Merci.
Il faut quand même pas oublier que tout ça, si ça s'est fait, ça s'est réalisé à bout de bras, vraiment, là, Cynthia. C'est maître d'œuvre de tout ça.
Il a un talent.
Éventuellement, ça va leur faire. Et si je suis élue, ben dans mon bureau, c'est sûr.
Ah oui, c'est ça, ok. Oui, oui.
Est-ce que vous aimez ça? Est-ce que si je vous donne une forme de dinosaure, êtes-vous capable de me dire ce que c'est? OK, admettons, un dinosaure qui a une tête là, ça monte comme ça, il y a des plaques osseuses sur le dos. Un stégosaure. Il y en a qui sont pas mal faites. Les dinosaures, comment ça vient au monde? Dans un œuf. On va laisser répondre donc. Alors, mon histoire commence avec un œuf. Un œuf qu'une maman stégosaure avait pondu. Un jour qu'il y avait beaucoup de brume. L'œuf s'est mis à grouiller un peu. Il s'est mis à grouiller. Il s'est mis à craquer. Là, il est sorti une petite tête. Petite tête. Mais il y avait de la brume. Aucun des autres stégosaures le voyait. Alors, à un moment donné, des stégosaures passaient juste au-dessus de lui. Il s'en rendait pas compte. Une grosse patte. Une autre grosse patte. Une grosse queue qui passe. Il cherchait sa mère. Et tout à coup, sa mère, elle l'a vu. Et c'est comme ça que Brume est né. Parce que le stégosaure, il s'est appelé Brume. Parce qu'il est né dans Brume. Alors, au fil des années, on va dire des mois pour commencer. Parce qu'un stégosaure, ça vient gros vite. Il se promenait avec le troupeau de stégosaures. Comme il était un peu plus petit, il mangeait plus des herbes. Il mangeait des feuilles des fois, mais juste des petits arbustes. Pendant que les autres, ils mangeaient des grosses feuilles, des gros arbres. À un moment donné, il n'y avait plus de feuilles, il n'y avait plus d'herbes, on changeait. Alors c'était un gros troupeau. Il marchait. De temps en temps, il y avait un feu. À cause de la foudre. Alors, il faut s'en aller. Le troupeau partait. À un moment donné, le troupeau a trouvé un bel endroit. Et savez-vous ce qu'il y avait dans cet endroit-là? De l'eau. Il y avait des arbres. Il y avait de la verdure en masse. Et cette journée-là, il y avait quoi? De la brume! Encore de la brume. Alors, ils sont mis à manger, mais tout à coup, qu'est-ce qu'ils ont entendu? Des bruits de poissons. J'ai dit que les stégosaures mangeaient de l'herbe, mais il y en a d'autres dinosaures qui mangent de la viande. Un gros dinosaure avec une grosse tête. Il a juste 3 doigts de même, là. Tout le troupeau s'en... Et il y a de la brume! Alors le brume, il ne va plus rien. Ça s'en passe de partout. Ça passe de partout. douceur.